Hi friends, welcome to this session on theories of second language acquisition, cognitivism. During the 1960s, various other schools of thought were developing as a discontent towards the inadequacies of behaviorism. The behaviorist perspective could not easily explain why people attempt to organize and make sense of the information they learn. Psychologists realized that mental events or cognition could no longer be ignored in the process of learning. They believed that the mental processes or cognition had to be considered for learning to take place. Cognitivism is the study in psychology that focuses on mental processes, including how people perceive, think, remember, learn, and solve problems. While applying cognitive approaches in learning and teaching, we focus on the understanding of information and concepts. If we are able to understand the connections between concepts, break down information and rebuild with logical connections, then our retention of material and understanding will increase. According to Mergel, cognitivism is a process based on the thought process behind the behavior. Changes in behavior are observed and used as to what is happening inside the learner's mind. Cognitive theories emphasize the children's conscious thought. From the two definitions, it can be inferred that a process can be called cognitivism if it happens in conscious thought. Key components of cognitive learning approaches. Ertmer and Newby describes the commonalities that exist between different cognitive theories. All the theories explain how learning occurs or mental activity occurs, that is internal coding and structuring by the learner. Factors influencing learning. Environmental conditions, practice with corrective feedback, processes of mental planning, goal setting and organizational strategies like the way the learners attend to, code, transform, rehearse, store and retrieve information, learners' thoughts, beliefs, attitudes and values. Role of memory. How information is stored in an organized, meaningful manner and how to relate new information to prior knowledge. Transfer of learning. How information stored in memory can be applied in different contexts. Types of learning are best explained. Complex forms of learning like reasoning, problem solving and information processing communicate, transfer knowledge in an efficient, effective manner by simplification and standardization. The knowledge is analyzed, decomposed, simplified into basic building blocks and irrelevant information is eliminated. Instructional designs identifies and consider existing mental structures and feedback from learners to design instruction so it can create accurate mental representations and can be readily assimilated. Major tasks of teacher or designer. Understanding that learners have different backgrounds, experiences which can impact learning outcomes, determining how to effectively organize and structure new information to work with these backgrounds or experiences and designing practices with feedback so that the new information is effectively and efficiently assimilated and or accommodated with the learner's cognitive structure. Piagetian view of cognitive and language development. According to Piaget, cognitive development and language acquisition are closely interrelated processes. During childhood, the abstract knowledge about the world can be gained through seeing objects around and by observing how objects function and interact with each other. This stage is known as sensory motor stage. He believed that without the development of cognitive knowledge about the world, language acquisition will not take place, and even if it occurs, the children will gain only little. This is known as cognitive determinism. The development of language forms is governed by cognitive development. According to him, children are born with basic action schemas such as sucking and grasping. During the sensory motor period, the children use action schemas to assimilate information about the world. Piaget describes two functions of children's language, the egocentric and the socialized. During the sensory motor period, children's language is egocentric. They talk either for themselves or for the pleasure of associating anyone who happens to be there with the activity of the moment. Piaget observed that during pre-operational stage, children's language makes rapid progress. The development of their mental schemas let them quickly accommodate new words and situations. From using single words, they begin to construct simple sentences. Piaget's theory describes children's language as symbolic, allowing them to venture beyond the here and now and to talk about such things as the past, the future, people, feelings and events. During this time, children's language often shows instances of what Piaget termed animism and egocentrism. In Piaget's view, language use is no different from any type of behavior. It is one of the many domains of child development that are determined by the same general underlying processes of development. Though at times young children fail in conservation tasks, they also display particular types of language behaviors reflecting their stage of cognitive development. On the basis of observations made in various types of situations, Piaget interprets the child's language as being first egocentric before becoming social. During the period of egocentric speech, children sometimes use speech to accompany their own actions rather than towards any communicative goal in interpersonal interactions. When they do use speech to communicate with others, they have difficulties placing themselves in the perspective of others when it differs from their own. Piaget conceived of human cognitive development as following a series of stages, each resulting from a major qualitative reorganization of the knowledge constructed at the previous stage. An early sensory motor stage, a pre-operational stage, a stage of concrete operations and a stage of formal operations. This sequence of stages results from a process of adaptation where the child constructs reality by means of two complementary processes, assimilation and accommodation. Through assimilation, the child transforms reality according to his knowledge representations, and through accommodation, his representations are modified as a function of his interactions with the world. The interplay of these processes result in child's gradual decentration. It enables them to take into account several dimensions of the same object and or several perspectives on the same situations. Children gradually get liberated and free themselves from their immediate perceptions. They are able to construct more abstract representations with divergent outlook. Vygotskian view of cognitive and language development. Lev Vygotsky was interested in the role of language in cognitive development. He believed that language was the most important tool that human could utilize. Language, especially in the realm of collaborative dialogue, is the way the more knowledgeable other communicates important information to a child. Vygotsky believed that there are three forms of language as outlined below. Social speech. This is what Vygotsky referred to as the external communication that people use to talk with other people. He believed that this form of language was typical in children from the age of 2. Private speech. This is what Vygotsky referred to as the internal communication that a person directs to themselves. This is another aspect of language development. Private speech is self-talk in children may be used to guide actions and aid in thinking. While Piaget viewed private speech as egocentric or immature, Vygotsky emphasized the importance of self-directed speech. Private speech is considered to be self-directed regulation and communication with the self, an intellectual function. It is typical in children from the age of 3 and become internalized after about 9 years. Silent inner speech. Vygotsky believed that this is what happens when private speech diminishes in its audibility until it becomes a self-regulating function. He believed that this was typical in children from the age of 7. Vygotsky's socio-cultural theory of development became a major influence in the field of psychology and education. This theory stated that students learn through social interactions and their culture. Through what Vygotsky called dialogues, we socially interact and communicate with others and learn the cultural values of our society. Vygotsky also believed that human activities take place in cultural settings and cannot be understood apart from these settings. Therefore, our culture helps shape our cognition. Vygotskian principle of teaching involves the zone of proximal development. Vygotsky believed that there were some problems out of a child's range of understanding, but if given proper help and assistance, children could overcome them easily. The zone is the area at which a child can perform a challenging task given appropriate help. Scaffolding is another Vygotskian principle for the socio-cultural perspective. Scaffolding involves providing the learner with hints or clues for problem solving in order to allow the student to better approach the problem in the future. Vygotsky would offer encouragement or strategies in the form of scaffolding in order for the students to attempt the problem. Vygotsky promoted guided discovery in the classroom. Guided discovery involves the teacher offering intriguing questions to students and having them discover the answers through testing hypotheses. A teacher utilizing Vygotskian methods of teaching would be a very active member in the classroom. The teacher would apply the technique of scaffolding, guided discovery, incorporate group or peer learning to help the students to internalize the new information and better understanding of the material. Jerome S. Bruner and discovery learning. Cognitive psychologist Jerome S. Bruner considered the goal of education as intellectual development as opposed to mere rote memorization. To Bruner, important outcomes of learning include not just the concepts, categories and problem-solving procedures invented previously by the culture, but also the ability to invent these things for oneself. The aim of education should be to create autonomous learners. Bruner believed that the curriculum should foster the development of problem-solving skills through the process of inquiry and discovery. The subject matter should be represented in terms of the child's way of viewing the world. The curriculum should be designed so that the mastery of skills lead to the mastery of still more powerful ones. Culture should shape notions through which people organize their views of themselves and others and the world in which they live. He also advocated teaching by organizing concepts and learning by discovery. Jerome Bruner identified 3 stages of cognitive representation. Enactive, the representation of knowledge through actions. Iconic, the visual summarization of images. Symbolic representation, the use of words and other symbols to describe experiences. The enactive stage appears first. This stage involves the encoding and storage of information. There is a direct manipulation of objects without any internal representation of the objects. For example, a baby shakes a rattle and hears a noise. The baby has directly manipulated the rattle and the outcome was a pleasurable sound. In the future, the baby may shake his hands even if there is no rattle, expecting his hand to produce the rattling sound. The baby does not have an internal representation of the rattle and therefore does not understand that it needs the rattle in order to produce the sound. The iconic stage involves an internal representation of external objects visually in the form of a mental image or icon. For example, a child drawing an image of a tree or thinking of an image of a tree would be representative of the stage. This may explain why, when we are learning a new subject, it is often helpful to have diagrams or illustrations to accompany verbal information. The symbolic stage is when information is stored in the form of a code or symbol such as language. Each symbol has a fixed relation to something it represents. For example, the word dog is a symbolic representation for a single class of animal. Symbols, unlike mental images or memorized actions, can be classified and organized. In this stage, most information is stored as words, mathematical symbols, or in other symbol systems. Bruner suggests that a learner, even of a very young age, is capable of learning any material so long as the instruction is organized appropriately. He sees the infant as an intelligent and active problem solver from birth with intellectual abilities basically similar to those of the mature adult. Bruner hypothesized that any subject can be taught effectively in some intellectually honest form to any child at any stage of development. He explained it through the concept of spiral curriculum. His concept of discovery learning implies that students construct their own knowledge for themselves. According to Bruner, the teacher should be a facilitator in the learning process. David Paul Ausubel and meaningful learning. David Paul Ausubel was an American psychologist whose most significant contribution to the field of educational psychology, cognitive science, and science education learning was on the development and research on meaningful learning and advanced organizers. Influenced by Jean Piaget, Ausubel believed that understanding concepts, principles, and ideas are achieved through deductive reasoning. He believed in the idea of meaningful learning as opposed to rote memorization. Ausubel believed that learning of new knowledge relies on what is already known. That is, construction of knowledge begins with our observation and recognition of events and objects through concepts we already have. We learn by constructing a network of concepts and adding to them. Concept map developed by Ausubel and Novak is an instructional device that uses this aspect of the theory to allow instruction of material to learners. It is a way of representing relationships between ideas, images, or words. Meaningful reception learning. Ausubel's theory also focuses on meaningful reception learning. According to his theory, To learn meaningfully, individuals must relate new knowledge to relevant concepts they already know. New knowledge must interact with the learner's knowledge structure. For this, the instructor must present the general idea first, then progressively differentiate in terms of detail and specificity. He must try to integrate new material with the previously presented information using comparisons and cross-references. He should use advanced organizers when teaching a new concept and a number of examples to focus on differences and similarities. Advanced organizers. Ausubel advocates the use of advanced organizers as a mechanism to help to link new learning material with existing related ideas. Ausubel's theory of advanced organizers fall into two categories: comparative and expository. Comparative organizers. Comparative organizers activate existing schemas and use it as reminders to bring into the working memory of what you may not realize is relevant. A comparative organizer is also used both to integrate as well as to discriminate. It integrates new ideas with basically similar concepts in cognitive structure as well as increase discriminability between new and existing ideas which are essentially different but confusably similar. Expository organizers. Expository organizers are often used when the new learning material is unfamiliar to the learner. They often relate what the learner already knows with the new and unfamiliar material. This in turn is aimed to make the unfamiliar material more plausible to the learner. Ausubel gives significant contributions in language development. He emphasized the importance of verbal language related learning. His first contributions include the notion of advanced organizers as described above. His second contribution include the active nature of reception learning. Behaviorist model and cognitive model, a comparison. The behaviorist approach only studies external observable behavior which can be objectively measured. They believe that internal behavior cannot be studied because we cannot see what happens in a person's mind. Contrary to it, the cognitive approach believes that internal mental behavior can be scientifically studied using experiments. Cognitive psychology assumes that a mediational process occurs between stimulus input and response output. The mediational event could be memory, perception, attention, or problem solving. These are known as mediational process because they mediate between the stimulus and the response. They come after the stimulus and before the response. So, if we want to understand behavior, we have to understand these mediational processes. Cognitive theories duly address them. Implications of cognitive learning. Cognitive view of learning considers learner to be an active processor of information. The basic teaching techniques associated are problem-based learning, discovery learning, cognitive strategies and project-based learning. Opportunities to explore the self by learning through the environment with little guidance from the teacher need to be provided. Readiness to learn, intuitive and analytic thinking, motivation for learning which must move from basic to advanced step must be given importance in discovery learning. Encourage student interaction and asking questions. Present information both visually and verbally. Provide lot of concrete examples. Model metacognition. Give support and motivation to the students. Now, let us have a quick look at what we have discussed in this session. Cognitivism is an approach towards language learning based on the developments in the area of psychology. Cognitivism gives importance to the language learning environment and the other mental processes like sensation, perception, attention and memory. Theories of some of the most influential cognitivists and their implications in the field of education are discussed in this module. Before we move on to the next session, please try to answer the following questions. How will you differentiate cognitivist and behaviorist approaches to English language teaching? Illustrate your answer by giving appropriate classroom situations. Explain cognitivist approach to English language teaching. What is the role of the teacher in a cognitivist classroom? Here are some books for your further reference. Towards a Theory of Instruction by Jerome S. Bruner, Belknap Press of Harvard University, Cambridge. Democracy and Education, An Introduction to the Philosophy of Education by John Dewey, The Free Press, New York. Psychology of Learning for Instruction by P. M. Driscoll, Allen and Bacon, Massachusetts. Hope this session was informative for you. See you next time. Until then, goodbye.